Welcome to Architrave Gaming. I'm the Archmaster. We're here to talk about D&D and my own home system and all sorts of things. Thank you for tuning in. Feed the algorithm with likes and comments and subscribes and all that. My Patreon is in the description, $5 a month. All right, so first topic. A silver sword is cooler than a +1 sword. Here's why. This is the idea that gaining a new ability or gaining the ability to do something new is better than just having numbers go up. It's more interesting to gain a feat than to get an ASI. Now, of course, people have to get ASIs because you don't really function at higher levels without it, but they would much prefer to get a feat. Everyone would much prefer to get something new, a new ability, than to just do what they can already do a bit better. So in my system, in my world, you have stuff like, oh, here's a werewolf, here's a fiend. Like, you cannot damage them. They are immune unless you use a silver sword or a magic sword or this or that, right? It's changed from 5e. 5e dumbs everything down because they say, oh, well, they're just resistant. I mean, it's a little harder to kill a werewolf, but I mean, you can do it. Oh, it's kind of harder to kill a fiend, but you can do it. That just means when I give you the silver sword or the +1 sword, you're like, yay, well, now I can just do what I could already do a little better, right? It's the same thing with the +1 sword. Who is excited to get a +1 sword? Seriously, +1 to attack and damage? I mean, yeah, that's a lot over the course of your whole career. How many attack rolls, do you make? But still, on the D20, you have 20 possible outcomes and you added 1. You have added a 5% bonus. It's like, that's not actually that good, It's so much more interesting to, as a GM, this is, a lesson for you. It's so much more interesting to give the player the ability to do something new that they couldn't do before. That's why people like spells. That's why they pick spellcasters. It doesn't just say, oh, you can already walk up and hit someone with a sword. Here's True Strike. You hit them better. It's like no one uses True Strike. And no, like even after it's fixed, even, Shillelagh. It's like, yeah, some druids use it because it's the only thing they have, but everyone would much rather do something new, right? It's boring. It's just boring to give them a reward that lets them do what they can already do a bit better. That's just not good game design. It's not good GM. It's like, let them do something new. Feats are always more interesting than higher numbers. When you're rewarding your martial characters with new armor, don't give them +1 armor. Give them armor that lets them now walk on walls or breathe underwater or this or that. Give them a sword that can shoot lightning across the room or make them fly or that can charm someone. Like new abilities. That's why people like spells. It's not just firebolt and then firebolt with an extra D10. No, it's like now I can make you fly and turn you invisible and I can read your thoughts, right? New abilities. That's always more interesting. Give characters new abilities instead of just giving them higher numbers. I think the higher numbers should just come automatically. If you're playing a high fantasy game, your numbers should go up, pretty quickly. If you're playing a low fantasy game, it should stay the same or maybe increase a tiny bit. But it's just so much more interesting to have new abilities than increased numbers. Behavior rewarded is behavior encouraged. Make sure, GMs, that when you are giving rewards for stuff, you're not rewarding them for doing something that is not behavior to be encouraged at the table. And I don't just mean things that you want to happen. I mean, good for the table as a whole. And make sure to don't neglect rewarding them when they do behavior that is good for the table. A lot of times, players do something cool, something good that you like, that other players like, and there's no reward. And yeah, we have inspiration. Oh, here's a piece of inspiration. But I'm talking about more than that. When players, when they make their characters lie, okay? Personally, me as a GM, it makes the game so much harder when my characters are lying all the time. I just expect them to tell the truth, and I plan for it, and I go through the world. My NPCs tell the truth. Everyone tells the truth, and players lie constantly. Have you noticed they lie to everyone all the time? For no reason and for every reason. It's ridiculous. Don't reward them for that. Don't actually make it work out for them. When they tell the truth, even though it could hurt them, reward them for that, right? If that's something you like. In my world, if you lie, your lips turn black visibly, and the person can see that you just lied, right? It's called a vice trait. Like you commit, murder, and your skin turns red. That's where my tieflings come from. It's like, oh, that person's a murderer. He has red skin, So players know, I'm actually not going to lie, steal, commit murder, etc. Like all of the vices. I'm not going to break any laws because it will literally show up on my body and I will be executed or arrested right there. Like, oh, you have red skin. You just murdered someone. You're under arrest. Like automatically, that's how the society is structured. I built that into the setting and the system because it punishes behavior that I don't like, and it rewards behavior that I do like, because we also have virtue traits. When you give charity, when you tell the truth, even though it could hurt you, when you accept surrender and serve people and do etc., you get virtue traits. Your skin goes silver or golden, and that's where ASMR come in my world. It's like you can have a halo over your head if you are so nice to people and so humble and whatnot all the time. Like you help people out free of charge. Like, I want my players to be heroic. I want the characters to be heroes. I want them to be selfless. So many D&D players, they play characters that are just selfish all the time. They are only in it for them, and they're just dastardly people. I don't enjoy that. I don't enjoy GMing for characters, for players who play characters who are just evil, and they're willing to rob the shopkeeper left and right, and they haggle for everything. It's just annoying. I want heroic fantasy. I want players to be heroes, and by heroic fantasy, I don't mean they have a lot of health, because that's not what makes a hero. They choose to do the selfless thing because it's right. So I built it into my setting that, you get automatically rewarded by the universe itself when you do good things, and you get punished when you do bad things. And so, lo and behold, I have a much better table. My players come in and they play, and they are good players. They're heroes. When you put those walls on the side, like, hey, here's a wall, you can pass through it, and then everyone will hate you. You leave it up to the player. What am I going to do? And they're like, well, I'm going to be good. And after a while, my players forgot about it, and they just do good things all the time, and they're heroes, and I love it, and they love it, and we all had such a good time because I put those rails on there. And if you're like, oh, you're railroading the players, it's like, well, no more than you having the players be arrested and thrown in jail if they, commit a crime. Like, that's railroading. You can't commit crimes. It's like, yeah, that's essentially what I do. You can't commit crimes. Instead of the city guards arresting you, it's like, well, the universe paints it on your skin. It's still the same thing. It's still a consequence for committing a crime. So, same thing. Here's another idea, something that MCDM caught onto, is that you should never have a null result. You should never be playing the game where just nothing happened. You made a roll, nothing happened. There should be good, bad, or neutral results. Something should happen. That doesn't mean you should always succeed on everything you do, but something should happen. And this is where you get to the idea of failing forward and succeeding at a cost. These may sound very similar, but there's a slight distinction that if you don't recognize, then it can kind of throw you off later. So, failing forward is when you have failed. You fail the roll, or the attempt thing. You fail it, and you don't succeed. A bad thing happens. Like you attempt to jump, a gap to grab a rope on the other side, and you failed. Okay. Failing forward means instead of just dying, which is always possible if it's appropriate. Instead of just dying, you failed to jump and grab the rope, but the enemies behind you who were chasing you, they cast, featherfall or levitate on you, and now you're stuck in place, and they come up and they capture you. So you failed the roll. You did not jump and grab the rope. You failed. But you failed forward. You don't just die. The story isn't just over, right? Succeeding at a cost would be you jump and like in my system, you have to roll over the DC to actually beat it, and meeting it doesn't beat it. When you meet it, you succeed at a cost, where it's like, you're just right there, like you get it, but a kind of bad thing happens. So an example would be you're running along, and there's the rope, and you have to jump the gap. You meet the DC, you succeed at a cost. Well, you jump and you grab the rope, you succeed, but the cost is you drop your weapon, or your coin purse falls out, or you awaken some ancient beast in the chasm that you jumped over, and he looks up at you and is like, you disturbed my sleep, and now he's going to hunt you, right? So you did succeed, but there's a cost to it. Keep both of those in mind. Failing forward and succeeding at a cost, they both look essentially like the same thing, but the difference is, did you grab the rope or not? Did you succeed at the roll or not? And they're very similar, but it's nice to know the difference. So now that that's done, we are just going to talk about my system and my world. So this is something that, Lord willing, will come to Kickstarter in the future sometime. But I've just got to tell you about my world and system and how it fixes the problems with 5e and Forgotten Realms, although a lot of people just homebrew, and so the problems with Forgotten Realms aren't really that much of a problem for most people, but they kind of are, because Forgotten Realms is kind of a boring kitchen sink. It has a little bit for everyone, but it's not opinionated. It's not really special. There's not a lot of meat to it, right? It's kind of this emaciated, just boring. There's a lot of skin, but you open it up and there's not a lot of meat. There's not much to it, right? and the stuff that is there, we've already been exploring for at least 10 years, and we're kind of burned out on it. So there are so many problems in 5e that my system and setting fix. And the cool thing about my system and setting is that they are so well integrated with each other. The setting, like the whole vice traits things, fits with the system so well. Like you track it like on the character sheet on paper. It affects your character and it affects stuff. Like the whole rogue class, they wear masks and stuff, because if you are okay, so the whole thing is in order to get a vice trait, you murder, and if you're like violent to someone, you like attack them out of anger, or like you're the aggressor and you attack them and you draw blood, your hand turns red, right? If you actually kill them, your whole skin turns red, right? In order to actually get those vice traits, you have to be in sunlight. Light has to be shining on you. And in some, like I have variations of my setting, right? Different areas and times and whatnot. So in some settings, it's just like any light, like a candlelight would do it. So, if someone's going to murder someone, they snuff out the lights before they go in and kill them, right? But, there has to be sunlight on you, because in my world, I don't have gods. I have just forces. I have powers. And light, especially sunlight, is the physical manifestation of those ideals, those powers and whatnot in the world. It's given through sunlight. It's so cool because all the stuff that happens in the world. But where was I? Okay, so not queso. Okay, so we're just queso. Anyway, rogues, when they like as a rogue, as a lot of rogues' job, it's stealing and assassination and lying and various other nefarious things. So in order to guard the player from that, and like it's in a world that makes sense. In my world, you have to have sunlight actually shining on you to make that work. So that's why rogues wear cloaks all the time, and they're covering their skin all the time. And it's why they go in darkness and they seek dark corners and whatnot, and why they do their most of their stuff at night. Also, if you like lie to someone, they have to see your face. You have to be face to face in order for you to actually get the vice trait, right? If your face is covered, it doesn't work. So, a rogue can lie to people like from the shadows, or just like wear a face mask and like lie to someone, and they don't actually get the vice trait. And like there are various ways around it and such in the world, but those things make the world building so much more enticing, because it's like, oh, well, if that's true, I wonder what it means for thieves guilds and for this and for that. Like it's so interesting, so meaty. So let's talk about the system in 5e. And thank you all for watching this. I appreciate it. In 5e, level 1 is essentially, well, not unplayable, but it's just not good. You have like 8 hit points or something. 10, 12. It's super low, and like even if you take that maximum first hit die, add your con, it's like wizard has like 6 or 7, maybe 8 if they're lucky. Other characters have just so little, right? And so most people, well, a lot of people just want to start at level 3, because I agree, at level 3 you have your subclass and a few class features and decent HP. But the whole point is, why do we have levels 1 and 2 if everyone just wants to start at 3? If levels 1 and 2 aren't very playable, and the GM, you have to be very careful, especially at level 1, because at level 2 they double their HP. Well, not double quite, because you roll the die, but still, from level 1 to 3, you double your HP, right? So if it's so hard to play level 1, why is it there, right? In my system, at level 1, you have race HP and class HP. Okay, so for your race, if you're a medium creature, like this is what 5e does, a medium creature uses d8s, small creature uses d6, tiny uses d4, etc. If you're a medium creature, you roll 3d8 plus your constitution modifier once, right? That is your HP. Without a class, that is everyone's normal HP. That's about 13 HP. The regular average farmer does not have 4 HP. They have about 13 or more if they have a high con, like if you're a farmer or whatnot, right? 13 HP, that's decent. That a good sword hit can kill you, but it doesn't have to. You might have to get stabbed a couple times with a dagger or a club to actually die, right? The whole 4 HP is just ridiculous, right? And then when you get level 1 in class, you take that class's hit die. So brute, which is my version of the barbarian, kind of better. The brute has a d12. The fighter has a d10. Wizard has d6, etc. Right? And these aren't actually the names of my classes. I'm just using the ones that you'll understand. So you get to mix and match your character's HP. If you're playing a gnome, you roll 3d6 plus your Constitution modifier. If you're a Dragonborn, what I call Draken, if you're a Draken, you roll 3d12 plus your Constitution modifier, right? And then the different races have different HP, right, for how big they are. Because I think having a gnome, tiny little gnome barbarian, rolling d12 just like the Dragonborn barbarian in 5e is ridiculous, absolutely insane. It's just stupid that. They both have the same amount of HP. It's crazy. No, the tiny gnome rolls a d6, and the big Draken rolls d12s. 3d6, 3d12, plus their con mod once. That is their HP. And then, if the gnome really wants to pick, brute, then he can roll that d12, because that's the class die. And then the Draken gets another d12, right? Same thing if the Draken, they have their 3d12, but they want to be a wizard, they roll an extra d6 class die at first level, right? And the gnome, if etc., right? So each class has its own hit die, and each race has its own hit die. You get to mix and match. This is to make things make sense. The whole slogan for my game is 5e if it made sense. Yes, it's built on the bones of 5e. It started out as essentially homebrewing 5e. I started playing 5e, and I was like, I don't like that rule, or that one, or that one, or that one, or that one, and I kept changing them in homebrewing, and I had this list of homebrew rules, and I was like, you know what? This is more homebrew than official. I might as well make my own system at this point. So I did. So you still have a d20. You still have your attribute scores. It's called attribute, not ability. You have your attribute scores from 1 to 20 as normal. The modifiers are all the same. You roll a d20. You have actions. It's all very recognizable to 5e players, but it's fixed. It makes sense. Okay. So like this, your Dragonborn barbarian is going to have more HP than the gnome barbarian. That just should be the way it is. Okay. If you are the kind of player that's like, oh, well, I want to play against type. I want to play a gnome that has a crazy amount of HP. Go ahead, play 5e. This game, my game, it's what I call a more mature game for mature audiences. It's a little more believable. It makes sense. It's not silly. Like, there are plenty of jokes and laughs and fun times and whatnot, especially in different settings and stuff. But the game at its heart is not stupid silly. 5e at its core is stupid silly. It's like, yeah, none of this really makes any sense. May just have cantrips. The society would be totally wrecked by cantrips. Every 10-year-old can pick up Firebolt to D10. That on average kills every peasant. One person could just kill a peasant every 6 seconds. Huh? Where are the mass murderers? Where's the school shooter? Where's the this and the right? It's like, the world doesn't actually make any sense. With how crazy, high, powerful all the magic is. People just resting, regaining all their HP the next day. It doesn't make sense. 5e requires you to just turn your brain off. It's like, yeah, we're not going to think too hard about any of this. My game doesn't require you to turn your brain off. You can actually think about stuff, and the game holds up. It's like a solid wall. It's like, yeah, actually, this holds up. So the gnome has less HP than the brute, and as you level up, you gain more HP from your class die and no more from your race die, right? So, at level 0, just as a race, you have your 3 hit dice plus your con mod for your race. And then at level 1, you get another hit die, just all by itself, no con. Another hit die for your class. Level 5, another hit die for your class. Level 10, another hit die for your class. And that's it. So you start out with 4 hit dice plus your con mod once. And then you end with 6 hit dice over the course of 10 levels. You only get 50% more, right? So first of all, at level 1, it's fixed, because at level 1, most characters have 19 HP. On average, right? So that's actually good. And brutes and martial characters have more, and I have DR in my system. Armor actually doesn't just increase your AC, just like being unarmored does. It actually gives you damage reduction. And so if you have heavy plate armor, it's 5 DR per hit. So it's you functionally have more than 19 HP, so don't worry, you can still tank, you can still go in and fight, and you're gonna survive for a minute or two. But it's not ridiculous. At level 1, you're not just this squishy little ice cube and a goblin can just stab you and you're dead, right? You can take a couple hits from a goblin at level 1. And then, by the time you're level 10, you're not this ridiculous 100 HP god. It's no, you still have 25, maybe 30 HP. Yeah, it's oh, okay. This is reasonable. I'm an experienced adventurer. I've gone 10 levels and I have 30 HP instead of the 19 I started with. Wow, that's cool. It's reasonable. It makes sense, right? Another thing, your class. I gave every class the subclass at level 1. Why? Every race gets their subrace at level 1. You have your race. You pick an elf. You don't just say, well, I'm an elf, and I'll decide whether or not I'm a dark elf or a high elf later. It's no, that's very important at level 1. We have to know what you are, right? Everyone picks their subrace at level 1. It would be inconceivable to pick your subrace at any other level. Why isn't it the same thing with the class? Well, it is in my system. If you're an armiger, which is the medium armor melee martial guy, if you pick an armiger and you pick up the fighter path, you get to pick whether or not you're a tactician fighter subclass or a cleaver fighter subclass at level 1. You get your class, your path, and your subclass at level 1. At level 1, you're a tactician, and you have your tactician features, and you have your class features, subclass features, and path features, and your racial features. You have plenty of stuff at level 1. Essentially, 3rd level in 5e is 1st level in my game. People want to play it at 3rd level in 5e anyway, well, just start them there. Just say, yeah, you have your subclass and a couple of features and your racial features. You have plenty of stuff at level 1. So you're not bored. You're not just waiting to, level up. What's another one? Battle maneuvers. All of the battle maneuvers in 5e, the weapon, the Battlemaster Fighter in 5e, his weapon maneuvers, they are each tied to a different weapon in 5e. So, you take your, great club and you can knock someone prone or knock them 5 feet. I forget exactly which one it was. You have your, rapier and you can, riposte and you can, precision strike, or lunging attack, right? You have different things, the hand axe has quick toss, right? They're all tied to a weapon. This makes fighters actually look cool because the whole thing is like you're a weapon master, you know all of the different weapons, right? I build that into all fighters, right? Like I don't think you should have to pick one little sliver and now I'm good at it. It's like I think everyone who's proficient in martial weapons should be pretty good at martial weapons. So a fighter actually, it's cool, they look cool, they look different because they're carrying around 5, 6, 7 weapons on them because they're a battle master, or they're a fighter, and so in order to use the different battle maneuvers, they have to use different weapons. So he pulls out his greatsword and he's attacking and whatnot. And he's like, oh, I need, my hand axe for this. He pulls out his hand axe and then he sees, someone else coming up. He pulls out his rapier and does that and drops his greatsword and gets his shield and he's doing this. You actually pull out different weapons and pick them up and you can, kill an enemy and grab his weapon real quick and use it without having to use an action for your own. A fighter is cool because he's walking around with 14 weapons. And you can tell, oh, that's a fighter. He's a weapon master, right? He's super good at weapons. Why? I can see he's carrying around 10 weapons on him. It makes you feel cool. It's not just, I have one maneuver. I have one weapon and I can do 15 maneuvers with it, but I can only prepare a certain number a day. It's or you just tie it to the weapon and let everyone who has proficiency in the weapon use it. If you don't have proficiency, you're like a wizard. You can't use it. If you do have proficiency, you can use it. Cool. I also have levels of proficiency, which lets you actually progress. And no, it's not complex. I have 3 levels of proficiency. 5e also has 3 levels of proficiency. Half proficiency, which if you're a bard, you know about that. Normal proficiency, and expertise. Voila, 3 levels of proficiency. I also do. So your first level of proficiency, this applies to skills, weapons, armor, magic, everything. 3 levels of proficiency. And you, the core important ones to your class, your weapon proficiency, armor proficiency, and magic, if you have it, those progress automatically at certain levels. So you don't have to be like, oh man, I really want to get this new skill, but I have to put my proficiency points in this thing because if I don't, I'll be underpowered. Those are taken care of. Those go up automatically as you increase in level. You're gonna just get better at the main things you're good at, right? But you get to choose languages, skills, specializations, whole bunch of other things, and you get to increase proficiency in those. There's another thing. By changing the whole class structure where it's not just class and subclass, yeah, that's simple, but we've been doing 5e for 10 years. We don't need it to be simple anymore. We're okay with a more advanced form of 5e. We're okay with a more, let's mature, let's grow up, let's, play big boy games now. So we don't need the same simple thing anymore. Class, path, and subclass. It's not that much more complex. It just gives you more options, more customizability. So anyway, you have, I gotta get some water. Should live stream this. If y'all don't want me to do live stream, I'd be happy to. I'd love to talk with people about this because just talking to the camera, it'd be nice if people challenge me on the things I say, and then I can actually prove why it's right or prove that I'm wrong. If I don't have a good argument, right? But it'd be so much better to actually engage with people. I'd love to. Almost impossible to do it on Reddit. Because when people disagree with you, they just downvote you instead of, if your comment is relevant, upvoting you. If they disagree with you, they downvote you. They aren't actually using the system the way it was designed to be used, so it's almost impossible to actually have a meaningful discussion there. Because once you get downvoted too much, no one sees you anymore, and it's like, but I have something meaningful to say. So anyway, where were we? Weapons, weapon battle maneuvers. All right, class features, class structure, and whatnot. I have a thing called specialization. Each class, or really technically each subclass, has its specialization. Okay. I think it's kind of lame and boring in 5e, where you pick a wizard and your subclass is the School of Magic. And you don't get any more customization past that. You pick the School of Magic and you're good at that, and that's it. That's you're a divination wizard. That's literally all you are. You're a divination wizard. It's like, huh? In my system, yeah, you can be a wizard and you can have a cool subclass that lets you do something super epic, and your School of Magic is just a specialization. Like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm especially good at divination. Like, I chose this thing to be especially good at. But my subclass is actually a whole separate thing that gives me a whole separate suite of features, right? I think it's just kind of lazy. I mean, I get what they're going for. They want it to be really simple, but still, if you want a more engaging game for, a sharper mind, it's just kind of boring, and it just feels like lazy design in 5e when the only customization you can get for your class is just your subclass. That's it. I give you your path and your subclass and your specialization, so you actually get to mix and match and make things cool. And then as you level up, you get to choose which things to be proficient in as you go. And then here's another super cool thing. This is where you kind of have to play the system with the setting. But I am of the firm opinion that you should not simply get stuff for leveling up. Nothing, right? You get some stuff, but when there's a thing to be gotten in the world, you should have to get it in the world. You shouldn't just wake up knowing it. You should not wake up knowing Fireball, okay? The fighter at level 5, they don't wake up next to a +1 sword. How silly would it be if it's like, all right, you're level 1, you get a +1 sword. We're like, huh? That's a physical thing. Like, where'd you get that? You have to go find it. But in 5e, we're perfectly happy to say, oh yeah, the wizard, you wake up with Fireball. Oh, you leveled up? Pick a new spell. You just get to pick a spell. Anyone you want. Did you have to learn it? Did you have to find it? Did you have to do a quest? Did you have to pay for it? No. You just learned it. You just woke up with it. It's another reason we have the martial-caster divide, that martials are underpowered and casters are not, because we just give things to casters for no good reason. And you can try to justify it and say, well, they've been studying their spell book for years and they just picked up, they finally made the breakthrough and discovered the spell formula and now they can cast Fireball. You could say the same thing for fighters. Like, well, you've been, piecing together this fight and this +1 sword for years, and you've been, talking to blacksmiths, and, it's all in the background, and eventually, today you got your +1 sword. It's like, but that would still just be unsatisfying. Like, no, I want you to have to actually find it. So, in my system, as you saw, your HP doesn't go up by much, and, yeah, you get an ASI every level, actually. You get +1 to an attribute of your score, an attribute score of your choice, every single level, including level 1. So, you roll your 3d6 down the line, and then you get +1 10 times over 10 levels. But the cool thing is, I don't like the lazy approach to play that 5e encourages in its players. They say, well, you just get everything automatically. You just have to show up and play, and you just get it. I want more proactive players. I want players who take on the burden of playing themselves. And they don't put it on me and tell me, well, GM, you have to entertain me. You have to give me moments to shine. You have to do blah, blah, blah. They say, no, actually, I'm going to do it, right? So I don't give them a lot of stuff just for showing up and leveling. There's so much more stuff to be gotten in the world, right? So I have, if you've ever played Skyrim or Elder Scrolls 4, or even 3, you have like shrines out in the world, like the Daedric Prince shrines, and you have like, like shrines to the Nine, and you can go get blessings from them, and you can like do a quest for a Daedric Prince and get his axe and stuff. That's what I do. Most of the power in the game is gotten from things in the world. I don't think you should level up and get Fireball. I think you should have to go talk to the mage up there on that, high mountain, and there's a manticore on the way there, and once you get to the high mountain, there's a cave inside, and there's who knows what in that cave that leads up to the top. You should have to actually quest for stuff. Same thing if you want to find your flame tongue. You're not going to wake up next to it. You're going to go out and find it. So the difference between a level 1 character and a level 10 character all by themselves isn't much. But you can have a level 1 character who hasn't adventured much and a level 1 character who has, and their power difference is insane, right? You can have level 1 characters that are more powerful, all in all, than a level 10 character. If a level 10 character hasn't actually gotten things and gone out into the world and engaged in the world. If all you do is sit around and level up, you're not actually going to have that much. You're going to have the ability to cast higher spells, but you're not going to automatically learn them. If you're level 10, now you can cast 5th level spells, which is, max in the base system, because anything past that is just too reality breaking. Like, we have advanced rules for higher level play for epic levels, but like the base game is 10 levels, because that's what most people play anyway. You get your whole class and path and subclass in the first 10 levels. And well, technically not the whole class, because you can prestige and anyway, you get your entire subclass in the first 10 levels. The problem with 5e is that you usually only get about 4 levels of subclass features, and 2 of them are past level 10. People only ever see about half of their subclass. It's just ridiculous. I take all of those subclass levels and I squish them down into the first 10 levels. If you play from levels 1 to 20 in my system, once you reach level 11, you get to choose a second subclass of your same class. So if you go Armiger all the way up, it's the medium armor, fighter. If you choose Armiger from level 1 to 20, then, 1 to 10, you get one subclass. 11 to 20, you get another. Because you've been doing this so long and you're so good at it that you actually picked up a second way of doing it, right? That's cool. Having 2 subclasses and all of the class features all the way at the end, like that's peak. That's cool. That's epic. You actually feel like, wow, I feel like a level 20 character, or like I'm past level 10. I'm in the prestige. Like, I picked up a second subclass. This is cool, right? It feels epic. You get to explore more of the game, and you get to mix and match because you get to choose your subclass. So you can make some crazy combinations. Like, there's so much more to it. And you don't have to multiclass. I don't have multiclassing because I have multi-subclassing if you get high enough level, if you earn it. But the whole idea of I'm a wizard and I just woke up one day after adventuring and now I suddenly know how to use every kind of armor there is. And I know how to use every kind of weapon there is. Yeah. Because I slept on it. Like, no, that's ridiculous. Absolutely insane. I take, multi-classing and the feat system, and I just merge them. I say, when you level up, and because you get a class feature at every single level in my game, there are no dead levels, you get a class feature and an ASI and a skill proficiency and a skill focus. You get the same thing every single level, right? But instead of just saying, well, you level up in multi-class, I'm a wizard fighter, it's like my game is a class-based game. Means you pick your class and you stay in your class. And if you want to play a custom class system, I have optional rules in the works for custom class where you get to mix and match, but the base game is just class. So if you want, when you normally get your feature, when you level up, at the GM's discretion, you can take one single feature from another class, their actual class feature, like any one of them, of your level or lower, or maybe just like one level before yours, perhaps. I haven't actually fleshed it out yet because we're just doing class right now. But you can pick another feature and just grab the one feature. So something like skirmishers, which is another class in my game. Skirmishers at level 1, I think, they can sprint. So you take your movement and you double it, right? You don't have to spend an extra action for it. Your movement is just doubled, right? If you want, but you have to be in a straight line because you're sprinting, right? So if you as the wizard, like, oh, I really want to sprint. When I level up, I'm not getting X class feature of the wizard. I'm actually going to get sprint from skirmisher, right? Of course, GM's discretion, but it's stuff like that where it's balanced. You're not picking a whole level with half of their proficiencies and all of their features at level 1, and then you get their subclasses. No, you're not getting subclass features. You're not multiclassing into other people's classes and subclasses. You just pick one feature of theirs. That's it. It's balanced that way. And that's my whole feat system. I take all the feats in 5e, stuff like Sentinel, right? Sentinel is a class feature of the skirmisher, right? Polearm Master is a class feature. It's technically a subclass feature, right? So you can, grab a feature from another class and just like, oh yeah, I want Sentinel, and you pull the class feature from that class that normally has it, right? Instead of having, I think 5e is so, the classes in 5e are so bare bones because they take all these feats. These are really cool things that should really go to classes. Like Polearm Master, that should go to like a subclass of fighter who's like a lancer, right? It's like, I'm really good at spears and polearms and stuff, and he should have, Sentinel, Polearm Master, Spear Master. He should have various feats and stuff tied to the subclass. But they don't have interesting classes. They don't have interesting subclasses. And so they take all those cool features that should go to classes and subclasses, like Brawler. I mean, that should be a brute thing, or even a dwarf feature, right? And they take them and just put it in this pool of feats. And so people hardly interact with it. So in my system, you can still, go pick the feat, but it's from another class. If you play the class, you get that automatically. I take all the stuff that's just floating around in 5e and I actually put it where it ought to be. Anyway, thank you for watching. Patreon down below. I'm getting hot and tired and my throat is burning. Keep an eye out for our Kickstarter coming soon eventually, Lord willing, in less than a month. More than a month, less than a month and a half. Mid-November. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, feed the algorithm, all that.